Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Unveiled Truths. Today we're going to be going over ideological subversion. And I think that this is a very important topic because you can just see the effects of ideological subversion throughout the United States and probably other places. I just don't know all of the news and all of the other places and so forth and so forth. So I'm going to get started by giving the definition of ideological and ideology. So, ideological is based on or relating to a system of ideas and ideals, especially concerning economic or political theory and policy. An ideology is a set of beliefs or philosophies attributed to a person or group of persons, especially is held for reasons that are not purely epistemic. I think that's how you say that. In which practical elements are as prominent as theoretical ones. So practically kind of like a us versus them type thing going on. And subversion, let me pull that up real quick. Is the undermining of the power and authority of an established system or institution. So we can already see subversion within our society nowadays because there just seems to be so many unconstitutional things going on. Like, for instance, whenever Mr. C19 came out, can't say the actual word because of what YouTube would do, but whenever they came out, the First Amendment was automatically put away. If you read the First Amendment, it says that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion, press, freedom of speech, and a couple other ones. But the point is that whenever it came out, what did they do? They shut down churches. That was already subversion right there. It's the undermining of the authority. And what is the authority that we're referring to is the Constitution. They just threw it out the window, kind of. Okay, so ideological subversion was actually already talked about and it's been talked about. And I'm going to put the dude's name in the description so that you can look him up because he's an ex-KGB agent and he's actually the one that talked about it, and his name is Yuri bezmenov. And he says that it's pretty much a great brainwashing technique which has 4 basic stages, and the 4 basic stages is demoralize, destabilize, create a crisis, and then normalize it. So for instance, demoralize, he says that it takes 15 to 20 years to achieve because that's how long it takes for one generation to go through the school system, is what I was trying to say. I had a little brain fart there. So that's why he says, how long does demoralization take? 15 to 20 years. They go through school. He says once you go through the demoralization stage, that there's no return. You'll have to wait for another 15 to 20 years for the next generation to pass through school because there's just like no way to return from it. So destabilize, you can see that destabilization has already happened throughout this country. For instance, like the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression and stuff like that, like they was destabilized. They didn't have the necessary resources to take care of their families, upkeep on taxes and stuff like that. And which, mentioning taxes, it goes to the banking system. The banking system loans our government the actual money, and then we have to pay back interest on the money. So bank loans it to our government gives it to us, then we as the citizens have to pay for that. So crisis. we see that with a certain sickness that everybody panicked with, and also other things that I don't really want to mention because I don't want to get banned or nothing. But then you have the normalization. Hence, like, for instance, no one was wearing masks. It wasn't a normal thing for people to wear masks. Then all of a sudden they said, oh, we need to wear masks. They also said that the masks don't do no good. And they came out and said that the mask was going to help prevent and so forth and so forth. Man, you go get my eyebrows done a little bit. Got a little uni showing there. How you doing? You know what I'm saying? No, I'm just playing. Alright, but anyways, yeah, that's the 4 stages of it. It's demoralize, destabilize, create a crisis, then normalize the crisis. And he even goes so far to say that, man, another brain fart. He goes so far to say that there's certain people that are used in this process because they think that they're going to receive power, but they're not. He says after they're done, then they're pretty much going to be disposed of as trash. Let's see, anything else? Oh yeah, he says that pretty much Americans are already good at demoralizing one another because I guess how we are towards each other. Like, if you look at America, we're real greedy, think that we deserve it all, and so forth. And then we treat other people like they're just trash, like they're not even human beings. And it's like, man, calm down with that. Let me see. It says, Bezmenov made the point that the work of the KGB mainly does not involve espionage, despite what our popular culture may tell us. Most of the work, 85% of it, was a slow process which we call either ideological subversion, active measures, or psychological warfare. What was psychological warfare? I think there's an old saying that says, if you tell a lie enough, eventually it'll become truth. Well, they say that the greatest mind trick ever known to man was repetition. If you keep telling someone something over and over and over and over and over, eventually they'll become responsive to it and start to believe it, even if it's not the truth. Even if I said, oh, the ground isn't actually the ground, it's water. Okay? If you pump that into the heads of little children growing up, eventually that's what's going to be the popular belief. It's not going to be the ground anymore. We're going to call it water because that's what I wanted it to be called. So we put all these kids through the school system, generations pass by, people believe that it's water, it's not the ground. That's how the mind control of repetition works. And also the first step of demoralization. That's exactly how our school systems work. They pump it into the heads of soft kids, then that's what we start to believe. Because eventually, whether we believe it, like it, understand it or not, our old generation is going to pass away. Then it's up to the new generation. So that's just pretty much how that is. He says that it's legitimate, and whenever it's referred to in the video as legitimate, what he means by that, or what it says that he means by that, is that it's not illegal. I guess if you want to go by the code of war or whatever that whoever came up with said that there's some type of laws with war or whatever. It's legitimate, so it's not illegal to do ideological subversion. Says Bezmenov explained that the most striking thing about ideological subversion is that it happens in the open as a legitimate process. See the legal process. You can see it with your own eyes. He says the American media would be able to see it if it just focused on it. So it's done right out into the open. There's nothing to be hid because they're showing us exactly what's happening. We're just not understanding it. We're not observing it, even though it's observable. Like, we can see it, but we're not seeing it for some reason. Here's how he further defined ideological subversion. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to a sensible conclusion in the interest of defending themselves, their families, their community, or even their country. So even if I bring you a wealth of information, if I show you facts, if I bring you to the concentration camp itself, is how he described it. He says no one will believe it. He says the only time that they will believe is whenever there's a military boot in their fat bottom. That's his words, is not mine. I'm quoting him. It says Bezmenov described this process as a great brainwashing, which has 4 basic stages. The first stage is called demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to achieve, according to the former KGB agent. That is the minimum number of years it takes to re-educate one generation of students that is normally exposed to the ideology of its country. In other words, the time it takes to change what people are thinking. See, so like I said with my ground and water metaphor, pretty much, or whatever you want to call it, my little saying I did. He used the examples of 1960s hippies coming to a position of power in the 80s in the government and businesses of America. Bezmenov claimed this generation was already contaminated by Marxist-Leninist values, of course. This claims that many baby boomers are somehow espousing KGB tainted ideas is hard to believe, but Bezmenov's larger point addressed why people who have been gradually demoralized are unable to understand that this has happened to them. So you're not even able to recognize that it's happening to you, pretty much. Let's see. My computer moved. Oh, here it is. This says, referring to such people, Bezmenov says they are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern, alluding to Pavlov. You cannot change their mind even if you expose them to authentic information. Even if you prove that white is white and black is black, you still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of the behavior, because it's all in the brain. They're reacting to a certain stimuli. Just like, for instance, whenever a baby's born, the stimuli is to be able to feed from its mother. I think they call that weaning. No, not weaning it, weaning it, or something like that. Well, you know what I'm talking about. But in any case, that's the natural stimuli of the brain. That's what it's meant to do, is feed off of its mother, because it can't just go out and eat a carrot. Ain't got no teeth. It says demoralization is a process that is irreversible. Bezmenov actually thought back in 1984 that the process of demoralizing America was already completed. It would take another generation and another couple of decades to get the people to think differently and return to their patriotic American values, claimed the agent. It says, and what is perhaps the most striking passage in the interview, here's how Bezmenov described the state of a demoralized person. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore, says Bezmenov. A person who is demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with the authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him a concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he receives a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his gonads, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragedy of the situation of demoralization. See, so once the first step happens, and you're no longer to think authentically, or even to perceive something that is actually true, then it's easy for the rest of the steps to fall into place. Easy. Because you can't even think, you can't see or perceive that which is right because you are demoralized. It's almost like J.D. Rockefeller. He says, "I care not who controls a nation's laws and statutes if I control their money," or something like that. See, so why would you need to worry about it? Because he controls money. He could just be like, all right, I'm shutting everything down. And the reason that I bring that up is because these people, when you say that it's demoralizing for them to print money that's supposed to belong to us and then make us pay interest on it, that seems pretty demoralizing to me. But according to him, that's the best business that we ever made, which I'm sure it is. I mean, my goodness, you figured out how to make paper into like gold. You become the wealthiest man on earth. I mean, my gosh, I'm sure it is the best business deal. But it's thievery, because the way that I look at it is having to pay taxes. That's kind of, I don't know if that's exactly right or constitutional. Well, let me put it of how they're doing it, because like I already said in section 1, it's article 1, section 10, it says that there pretty much can't be a fiat currency, that the only thing that they're supposed to emit is gold and silver, which brings in the subversion part. Alright guys, I hope that y'all learned something. If you liked it, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. I plan on continuing to make videos. Alright guys, shalom.